My son was murdered at Pulse, yet the Pulse owners broke the law over and over again, and yet have never been held accountable. Why did the city of Orlando let the Pomas break the law for 10 years? For 10 years. Why did they do that? Why did they let the Pomas violate life and building and fire safety codes? The city of Orlando have been silent, but we won't be silent.
Hi, my name is Tiara Parker. I'm from Philadelphia, PA. I am also one of the Orlando survivors from the Pulse nightclub shooting that occurred on June 12, 2016. I am also the cousin of Akira Monet Murray, which is one of the 49 angels who was killed that night. There has been a lot of unsettling articles in regards to the building layout when it comes to the Pulse nightclub. And they're very unsettling and they're very triggering. But being as though that I am a survivor, I'm going to speak for those who can. So I have a few questions that I would like to ask. And here's just the start of a few. Who is responsible for following building codes, business regulations, and fire codes? Who is responsible for making sure that up-to-date life safety plans are provided to the Orlando Fire Department? And who is responsible for making sure that the building did not exceed its occupant load? I really would like to see these questions answered in real time, meaning at its full and honest state. I would love to see that we get some kind of justice, some kind of answers for what occurred that night. Because if I do remember correctly, I was someone who was laying on the bathroom floor with several other injured, if not dead, victims of the shooting. That included my cousin and an old friend. We just need answers, because there are some things that are very unsettling, and these are really out there, and we just need answers.
According to Pulse's conditional use permit, they were only allowed to operate as a martini bar and restaurant. Why for 10 years were they allowed to operate as a nightclub? Why were they not fined or cited? Why? Pulse was not allowed to charge nightly covers according to their conditional use permit. The night of the shooting, I paid $10 to get in. Why were they never fined or cited for such actions?
Why was the dance floor never removed from Pulse, even though Rosario Poma said he would remove it? It was illegal, and that's the very dance floor that my son was murdered on.
I'm City of Orlando resident August Calabrese. I'd like to know, why did the City of Orlando never inspect, fine, shut down, or bring Pulse into compliance in the 6 years after it documented the club's unpermitted interior renovations, which included new walls, plumbing, and electrical work?
Why were the owners of Pulse allowed to build narrow hallways without permits? Was the nightclub ever inspected for ADA compliance in the 6 years it operated with unpermitted renovations?
Years before the shooting, the City of Orlando noted that some of the existing openings going from room to room inside of Pulse do not, quote, meet the minimum width required by code. The Department of Justice and the Police Foundation released a joint report after the shooting that showed how Pulse's, quote, narrow hallways affected the escape and rescue of shooting victims.
The hallway where we were trying to enter to get out, to get freedom, is only the size of where me and you are in the length and width of it. So you can only imagine 95 people trying to get in this small area as the width of me and you. With that going on and trying to enter out of that door. I think that's where me and my friend lost touch at.
Did all hallways and openings in Pulse meet the minimum width as required by code on the night of the shooting? When were these last inspected and measured by the city?
So my question is for the city of Orlando is why it took so long for police to respond to an event that occurred at 2:02 in the morning and the shooter was not brought down until 5 a.m. And it just makes me wonder, was it because it was at night? Because it was a gay bar? I don't understand when I've seen the police respond much faster with SWAT teams, and it just breaks my heart.
To the City of Orlando, and on behalf of the 49 lives that were taken on June 12, 2016 at Pulse, answer this question. Your own public records show that due to unpermitted renovations, current floor plans were never recorded into the city's official building records. How many times did first responders try to find Pulse's up-to-date building plans on the night of the shooting?
When our first responders arrived on the scene to rescue the hostages, why did they have an incorrect layout of the floor plan?
Why did the first responders have to use precious time the night of the shooting to scramble to find someone who knew the building layout and then have to hand draw the building based on an employee's memory?
How many times did the police have to rely on a sweaty piece of paper with a hand-drawn layout of Pulse on it? How long did it take them to figure out the layout of the building and to find the hostages? How many people died in this time?
How many people died or were injured after the SWAT team breached the back wall in the wrong place? What about the time that police were trying to figure out the layout of the building without building plans?
Which Pulse building plans were provided to the Orlando Police Department? At what times and on what dates did the police ask for them? And when were they provided by the permitting division?
The city required Pulse to keep track of its occupancy at all times using a clicker counter. Did its final count match the number of documents of victims and survivors?
Was Pulse over capacity on the night of the shooting? Public records show that Pulse had a history of operating over capacity, creating unsafe conditions for its patrons and the surrounding community. The city originally reported that 321 people were in the nightclub on June 12, 2016, which is over its legal limit. Where did the city get this number? What was the final number on the nightclub's clicker counter?
Why did Pulse's occupant load change so much, and at times drastically, when the square footage of the building did not change? Was the fire department ever concerned with using Pulse's illegally modified layout to calculate its occupancy load? Is it a common practice for the fire department to ignore unpermitted renovations when inspecting building safety?
Is the City of Orlando aware that the building plans emailed to Permit Office employee Tim Johnson, which was provided to the media and the FBI, were inaccurate and did not show Pulse's second level? This is where multiple victims were trapped during the shooting.
Speaking of second level, where victims were trapped during the shooting, the only access was a ladder, not a stairway, a ladder. How is this not against building and fire code? And why wasn't this ever cited during inspection?
Metal beaded curtains were placed over the doorways that led to Pulse's main entrance and exit, the reception area. These metal beaded curtains clearly, police footage shows, obstructed the view from inside and outside the club. First responders can be seen pushing them aside to try and look in. How were these never cited during fire inspections? Section 14 of the Florida Fire Prevention Code states that hangings or draperies shall not be placed over exit doors or located so that they conceal or obscure any exit. It also states that no furnishings, decorations, or other objects shall obstruct exits or their access thereto, egress therefrom, or visibility thereof. Why were these metal beaded curtains that were draped over the doorways never cited during fire inspections? How accurate and thorough were Pulse's fire inspections? How many violations were the Pulse owners allowed to violate? At Pulse, 2 exit doors led to a narrow hallway that was created with Pulse's illegal unpermitted fence. When people inside the club tried to escape, they exited out into this narrow hallway. Inside this narrow hallway, there were trash cans. There was no way to get out.
We had first pushed our way through the door, and it was a small alleyway in regards of a lot of people trying to get out, and it was really a lot of traffic. So me and this tall gentleman, we just had the idea to close the door shut and push against to make sure if it was coming this way, because the bullets were getting louder, it was getting closer. We just kept the door shut, tried getting everyone as much space and as much time to get out. When I ran out and I dodged through a big hole in a fence, a gentleman collapsed right in front of the club.
Just a question for you. When you were holding the doors shut so that the shooter could not get out, but was there any concern that you might be keeping people fleeing the shooter from getting out there?
No, that was on my mind. There was banging, there was pushing of the door. That was on my mind. But at that point in time, I just tried doing what I thought would be best at that moment. Because it was getting louder and getting closer, and I looked to my left, there was a good 20 people piling on top of each other trying to exit out a small closet-looking door to the parking lot. And I pray that it was nobody trying to escape, and if they did, if they hid, if they got stuck, and you don't know what to do until that happens. And I just thought I was doing the right thing.
You were worried about getting trampled, in other words. So many people were coming into this small little corridor.
I didn't care about getting trampled. I wanted everyone to get out. My goal was making sure my best friend and these people had space.
The Florida Fire Code states that exit routes should not be obstructed, but clearly there were trash cans and the illegal unpermitted fence obstructed people's escape to safety. Why was this narrow hallway, this tunnel, never cited in fire inspections? Why was Pulse allowed to store trash in this area that was obviously an exit route?
Why didn't the city follow up on Pulse's unpermitted fence? A fence that was painted black so victims couldn't even find the latch to escape to safety.
Pourquoi la ville n'a-t-elle pas mené d'enquête pour pouvoir déterminer combien de personnes ont pu s'échapper par la clôture non autorisée, dont la hauteur était contraire au code de la ville? Combien de personnes ont dû sauter par-dessus la clôture ou l'abattre? Combien de personnes sont mortes parce qu'elles n'ont pas pu sortir, parce que leur chemin vers la sécurité a été entravé par d'autres modifications illégales apportées au bâtiment?
I managed to jump. I jumped up. I ran to that back wall back there. I jumped on a silver table, high silver table, and I hopped the fence.
We left once we heard the initial gunshots and hopped over the fence eventually.
Then I unfroze myself and then jumped over the back wall that everyone was trying to get out of. I just jumped over and just kept running.
Nowhere to go. There was no exit. There was no window to break to get out. So I just ran into the bathroom.
Pulse owners were required to have windows facing Orange Avenue to maintain 15% transparency. However, these were covered up by an unpermitted bar. Why was this violation never documented in inspections?
How many people died because they couldn't find their way out of a building without the required number of windows and the interior painted black? How many people ran into the nightclub's other rooms because they could not find a clear path to safety?
We know at least 20 unpermitted renovations were made to the Pulse building. Does anyone in the city of Orlando know how many building and safety codes were violated by the Pomas? And how many were violated the night of June 12, 2016, when 49 people were murdered?
I'm City of Orlando resident Scott Fennick,
After being notified of unpermitted interior renovations at Pulse, the city's permitting office, specifically Tim Johnson, told fire inspectors that no new floor plans were needed. Why did this happen? Better yet, how could this happen?
Mi nombre es Araceli María Jiménez, madre de Gerardo Antonio Ortiz Jiménez. Yo tengo una queja porque he sabido que la discoteca donde murió mi hijo le hizo una remodelación y dicha remodelación nunca fue registrada, nunca fue legalizada en el ayuntamiento donde se hace allá en la ciudad. Y yo tengo entendido que no se debió estar funcionando esa discoteca si no tenía los planos legalizados. Yo creo que no se ha hecho la justicia que se debe hacer, que la ciudad tiene culpa y los dueños de la discoteca tienen culpa de lo que pasó ahí porque no se pudo rescatar a esos jóvenes a tiempo por no tener los planos de esa remodelación. Yo reclamo justicia porque no se ha hecho la verdadera justicia para mi hijo y para todos esos jóvenes que murieron allí y los heridos que todavía están sufriendo.
Was Pulse's occupancy load modified to allow Pulse owners more time to install required life safety features? Why were these exceptions made for Pulse owners?
Why were life safety features never installed inside Pulse?
Records indicate that Fire Marshal Tammy Hughes was supposed to inspect Pulse after the shooting. However, the City of Orlando has yet to release the results of any such inspections. Why not?
Why has Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer been so supportive of Barbara Poma and the OnePULSE Foundation when it is documented that the Office of the Mayor has been completely aware of Pulse's building code violations and unpermitted renovations?
Does Mayor Buddy Dyer and the City Council think that someone who violates building laws and city codes should be involved in a multi-million-dollar museum in Orlando? And how is it that someone being actively sued by the shooting victims and survivors can start a nonprofit in their names?
How can you justify spending millions and millions of dollars on a project that was presented to the tourism board as something that would be good for tourism and fill hotel rooms for a mass shooting, complete with a gift shop, and not have a plan, a long-term care plan for the victims and survivors, most of whom are brown or black, who are struggling daily with financial needs and mental health needs? What's more important, tourism or the victims and survivors?
Why are tens of millions of dollars being set aside for a project led by people who broke the city's own laws instead of being set aside for the victims who need the help? Victims like me, who reside outside Orlando and receive no ongoing support. I have gone through multiple surgeries and I am relying on the kindness of strangers for financial help. And I'm a frontline worker, a nurse. What are you doing? ¿Por qué se gastan millones de dólares en un proyecto dirigido por personas que violaron las leyes de la ciudad en lugar de gastarse en víctimas que necesitan ayuda? Víctimas como yo, que residen fuera de Orlando y no recibieron apoyo continuo. He pasado por varias cirugías y confío en la amabilidad de los extraños para obtener ayudas financieras. Y yo soy un trabajador de primera línea, un enfermero. ¿Qué estás haciendo?
Why do the friends and families of the 49 killed even have to ask these questions, just in order to bring to justice those that broke the city's codes and policies?
Hola, my name is Brenda Campos Marquez, the cousin of our beloved Brenda Lee Marquez McCall, killed at Paul's May 12, 2016. In behalf of all family members and friends and loved ones, and eager to seek justice, we ask today to the City of Orlando, to all and any who may have the answers to these questions. We make a plea to you to please come forward. Can the City of Orlando tell us why haven't the owners of Paul's have yet to be publicly questioned about not providing the city with up-to-date and approved building plans? They were supposed to keep their patrons safe. They failed to do so. So, may the Lord forgive those who keep silenced, as your silence equals compliance, and your compliance equals evil, and evil equals Omar Mateen. And far, far, far worst yet, Barbara Poma.
If the City of Orlando has access to all of Pulse's building plans and the building itself, then they should be able to see all of the unpermitted modifications. Also, has any elected official even looked into the multiple flagrant violations of these codes?
Are building safety codes optional? If not, why weren't they enforced at Pulse?
Hi, my name's Anita, and I'm going to tell you what some of the things we found in the public documents here. One was a Q&A that the city dispersed that was rife with misinformation, and I'm going to read some of the things that they put out to the media and other people who would ask questions. They, including that the city records show, quote, a generally compliant and safe building, quote, no obstructed aisles, quote, fluctuations in occupancy levels never occurred, and it's provably false, and that people were not prevented from getting out of the building or rescuers from getting in. But how can they pass that information around when their own public records show that that wasn't true? And why, when they did no inspections of this unpermitted work, did they tell an Orlando Sentinel reporter that the building was safe? If they never inspected it, how would they even know? Also, you have to wonder why they didn't present the newspaper, the Orlando Sentinel, with just the facts. A lot of what they did was presumptive statements and just some misinformation. So, and the reporter, and before they gave any information out to that reporter, they sent it past their legal department to say, is this okay to say this? You don't have to ask if it's factual and it's supported by documentation, which is what these questions are based on, actual documentation.
Why didn't Orlando ever start an investigation after they learned from a reputable licensed fire alarm company that Pulse had illegal renovations? A letter that was sent before the shooting Why didn't the city ever fully inspect the interior of the building and document the changes that were made illegally? Are unpermitted renovations and code violations not a public safety concern? Also, after neighbors complained, why didn't the city shut down Pulse for operating as a nightclub in violation of its conditional use permit?
Did Pulse have up-to-date life safety plans that showed the unpermitted layout of the nightclub as it was on the night of the shooting? If so, why haven't these been released to the public?
Years ago in Rhode Island, at the Station nightclub, there was a fire that killed 100 people. The owners of that building, because of building code violations, ended up in prison, charged with, convicted of, involuntary manslaughter. Now, the Pulse Club had documented code violations and unpermitted renovations that actually hindered escape and rescue efforts. Yet there was no investigation. So you have to wonder why. If it was white affluent kids that were killed in that nightclub, would there have been an investigation and charges?
How was the shooter able to just walk into the Pulse nightclub with an assault rifle? How was the front entrance left unattended, even for a minute? Years earlier, Rosario Poma said that he would be hiring added security. Where were they?
Why does it appear that the city of Orlando has been protecting Pulse owner Barbara Poma and Rosario Poma by not providing reporters with all of the facts regarding that violation done at Pulse, by not doing an investigation into the known legal violation that affect the escape and rescue of the shooting victims, by openly supporting the OnePULSE Foundation, the nonprofit incorporated by Pulse owner Barbara Poma?
How, in good conscience, can the city of Orlando allow people who failed to adhere to the city's own building codes, which are designed to keep patrons safe, stand behind them in a new multi-million-dollar venture, one that pays Pulse's Barbara Poma a six-figure salary?
Why are the victims of this bloody massacre that happened on June 12, 2016, and the families of the deceased of this tragedy having to dig for the facts? Why aren't all the records available, including SWAT and OPD communications?
As a victim and survivor of the shooting in Orlando, I am very curious as to wonder if there are people out there who really still care about those who were either harmed or killed that night. We deserve justice. Anybody who was harmed, hurt, or injured in regards to the Orlando shooting, we have yet to get any justice. And we were hoping that someone would be willing to do the right thing and tell the truth about what the building setup and building violations were, because clearly there were things in that building, if I can recall, that did not seem right to me. Like the entire bathroom was black except for the lights, and there were that was a lot to see, because all I remember that night is being in a black and red bathroom, and it was only black and red at its maximum, because there was not only just red lighting, but there was red blood everywhere. So I'm just wondering if who's going to be the right person to do the right thing and tell the truth about what the building setup was supposed to be and how many people could have been saved that night. That is my question, and I really want an answer. So we demand justice for Orlando.